this is a video about RASI. This is RASI, which stands for Removeable Arduino Saxophone Interface. Back in 2021, I decided, with no musicians to play with as we were locked down, I wanted to make a device which would read data from my saxophone and send it to a computer, and the computer can respond to this data in different ways. So the idea was that I could improvise freely with some kind of feedback, audible feedback from the computer. So the idea was to have a removable device which fits on my saxophone, non-invasive. And so various movements or sensors on the saxophone would send data into a computer, and that the computer could then translate this data into any way possible using software. So the first project was to decide on how this is going to happen. I was introduced to Arduinos. I looked on a few websites about augmented instruments. There's loads of information out there. And I was particularly taken with Sarah Bell Reid's trumpet sensor. It was called MIGSI. Very similar kind of idea, but I thought for the saxophone it's going to be different, as we need most of our fingers to do actual saxophone operation. The other thing I was interested in is having something which is non-computery in terms of control. I feel like when I'm playing, I want to just play, and when I'm operating a computer, I want to operate a computer. But doing both at the same time, I feel is pretty difficult, and one doesn't really go with the others so well. So I wanted something which I could play with on the saxophone without needing extra switches, foot pedals, etc., just to send data to the computer. So the data comes out of the Arduino from the saxophone. The data it transmits are two types. The one is from two pressure sensors, which are mounted on the thumbs of my saxophone, and the other is a gyroscope inside. So a bit like a mobile phone, when you move it around, it sends different movement data into the computer. There's some software actually on the Arduino itself, which the Arduino needs to send the right kind of data into the computer. And you can check out the download below if you want to get yourself an Arduino and use the code to get the thing started. So the pressure sensors are the sort that you use for making electronic scales. So the more you squeeze them, the more data, the higher the number of the data that goes into the computer. And I thought having those on the thumbs might be fun, as you don't necessarily need your thumbs the whole time to play the sax. Also, it's kind of fun to have some data which gets sent. So, for example, on the sax, your left thumb is being used to balance the sax and also to play octave keys. So sometimes this pressure is a little bit random. You can't really control the exact amount of pressure. And it's kind of fun to have some data which is kind of, you're trying to be exact about it, but it's also kind of random. So the things that can then feed back musically aren't 100% controlled. There might be something happens that's unexpected, which is always fun. When I first started experimenting with the Arduino, I found you could connect it to Ableton Live, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, music software. So I thought this was a good place to start. There's a thing called MAX for Live, which is an extra bit of Live which you can purchase, where it's more open-ended. You can design your own plugins into the live environment. And I found there's a thing called Connection Kit, which is great. So it is designed to work with Arduinos especially, and they even give you the code to put into the Arduino, so they talk to each other nicely. So this is what I did. I hooked my Arduino on the saxophone into Ableton, and then I was able to map the different data streams from the Arduino onto different controls into Ableton, and this was a lot of fun. Okay, when I squeeze this bad boy, the tone's going to change on the piano. Look at that. So I had some fun using Live and Max for Live plugins with a controller. Now the big problem I had was that when you saved the projects in Live, the settings of the connection kit didn't save as well, which meant that for each different setup you used, you had to recalibrate the Arduino. So obviously on a live gig, it's just not cool to do that. So I needed a new method, and I thought the idea was to build a system myself in the computer where everything was controlled nicely and set up right from the start, and I'd have more flexibility. So I decided to get into the realms of using MAX MSP. And there's many ways of doing the same thing, which I also like. Also, there are tons of videos online, obviously, to learn how to do this. So I came across a thing called Maxuino, and there'll be a link below. And Maxuino, what it does, it is a little bit of Max programming, which has already been done, luckily for me. And what it does, it senses what's happening on the Arduino, and you can send that data into Max instead of the connection kit in Max for Live. So my next problem was to get the Max for Live devices, which I was enjoying playing with, into Max. And it seems that it's not so difficult after all. You can just drag these plugins into Max. You can use any plugins in Max, even VST or AU plugins, into your patch. And so I then found you could use the control data from the Arduino to move any of the numbers and dials in any plugin. So my idea next is to try to create a Max patch. My next idea was to create a series of Max patches which you could easily download and use as an idea or as another control device for writing a piece. So hopefully as this project continues, I can show you more and more patches which I've made which you can download and have a look at and use in pieces or improvisations of your own. If you're excited about this project like I am, please let me know your thoughts. And also, if you're a composer or another improviser, I'd love to know if you'd be interested in collaborating or using some of this technology for works of your own. So do let me know and leave a message in the messages. Thanks.